Hello, everyone. We are getting near to 12 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Katie Jane. I'm the Vice President of Community Life and Compliance, and welcome to the 2023 Continuum of Care series. We're very proud of this series. We do it annually, and it allows residents to be refreshed, reminded, or informed of all the resources that you have chosen when you come to Bishop Gadsden. So today we're going to talk about transitions with our marketing team. I wanted to remind everyone to please silence your cell phones. And in front of you, you have the presentation so you can follow along. And then also we ask you to rate us at the end. If you have comments, suggestions, maybe a question that wasn't answered that you want more information on, please save your questions for the end. We provided pens, you can write it down, and we'll have a microphone that goes around so everyone can hear your question. Okay, and welcome.
So, thank you all for being here. How many of you have been to this before? Well, let me ask it a different way. How many are new? Okay, good. Thank you very much for coming. I think you all know me, Laura Wilson, Vice President of Marketing. And remember, we're going to try to keep this to an hour because we're in marketing, so we get paid to talk. So we'll try to keep it an appropriate time. Okay, you'll see what we're going to talk about today. What does this mean, the continuum of care? We'll talk about that. What does it mean if someone chooses to make a permanent move to Myers Hall, assisted living? And how about a permanent or temporary move to the Estes Community or Christie Rehab? So it was fun to update these slides because last year we didn't know what the names of these places were, and it was fun. So we have done some updating. So if you see something that we neglected to update because of last year, let us know. First of all, everyone wants to know, are you going to have a place for me when I need it? The first line that says, it is guaranteed in your residence and services agreement. That was that 18-page document that each of you received when you moved in. It also denoted your contract type. We have copies of these that are filed electronically. You may have one too, but I always tell people it's something that will put you right to sleep. So it's 18 pages long, but that outlines all of the services that are provided in this continuum of care. That is assuring you that you have priority admission to the healthcare areas at Bishop Gadsden, meaning assisted living, skilled nursing, or short-term rehab. You go ahead of people that don't live here. Ashley and Dorothy have waiting lists of people that want to move here, but you go ahead of them, so we will always have a place for you. Remember, too, that typically, when someone is making a transition to another part of Bishop Gadsden, it doesn't happen overnight. Things start happening and people start saying, maybe I need to start thinking about, what's that assisted living thing all about? So typically it doesn't happen overnight. So that's where conversation starts. And they start saying, I want this type of residence or that type of residence. That's in the perfect world that we all like to live into. But sometimes things happen very quickly, and that might mean a quicker admission to a different level of care. But we always try to keep some emergency beds in an emergency room for those situations. And I ask this question every year too. How many people can tell me exactly, are you a life care or a continuing care contract holder? Y'all are great. You can come up here and do this presentation then. So life care and continuing care are the two different types of contracts that are offered. It's on record. We have a record of it. We have a database that shows that. So people often want to know, biggest question is, how much does it cost to move to those different parts of Bishop Gadsden? Depends on two things. Your contract type and the type of residence that you want. Just like when all of you moved into this part, the apartments and cottages at Bishop Gadsden, There's an entrance fee based on square footage. We have some lovely one-bedroom apartments. We have some beautiful 2,800 square foot cottages. So entrance fees and monthly fees vary based on the size of the residence that you select. The same thing happens for moving to assisted living, skilled nursing, and memory support. There are different sizes of residences, and then we have to match up your contract type as well. So some people say, well, can't you tell me how much it costs? Yes, I can. I have it right here, but there are about 8 to 10 different variations that you can choose from, but we have to know your contract type. So we have all of the information right there, so if you want to ask very specific questions, we'll be happy to do that for you. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley to talk a little bit about assisted living.
Thank you. I recognize a lot of you, and a lot of you I don't recognize, so I'm glad to be here and be with you guys. And I encourage you, any time, to come by and sit down and have a conversation with me. Let's get to know each other, and let's talk, and really, even if we're years out before assisted living, it makes it much easier when it is time. So what are the reasons that one would move to Myers Hall? There are a lot of different reasons. Vision challenges might be one. Difficulty with mobility. Trouble managing medications. That can be tough sometimes when you're on 5, 6, 7 and they keep coming. That's hard to manage. There are different times of day. Some are PRN. Needing standby assistance for bathing and dressing. This is another thing that we can help with. If you need help getting to and from doctor appointments, we include those, the transportation. Challenges with navigating the cafe. Maybe it's getting hard to carry the tray, to get around and to ring up. And so it might be easier with a restaurant-style dining where you're seated and someone takes your order. Diseases that vary day by day in severity. There's Parkinson's, there's MS, where sometimes there's good days and sometimes there's bad days. And so assisted living might fit that need where they're there when you need them. What services are provided in Myers Hall? So we mentioned the restaurant-style dining. All your meals are provided. We have. How many of you have been to Frederick Dining Room? It's lovely, isn't it? So Frederick Dining Room, we serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner, restaurant-style dining. It's good too, there you go. Tray service, so we can offer tray service. A lot of people get that for breakfast, which I think is pretty nice. And we can certainly deliver lunch and dinner. We encourage you to come to the dining room, but tray service is available. Medication management, we can manage those meds, we can order them. We can, when you're running low, we'll make sure they're ordered from the pharmacy, and we'll come by and give you your meds, which is, it can be complicated. Again, we talked about when there's a lot of different medications, different times. They all start looking alike. You don't know which one is which. We can make the bed and take the trash out daily. That's nice. Weekly housekeeping, laundering of linens and towels, and it's optional that we could do your personal laundry. Emergency call pendant, or we like to call it the easy button. And really in for y'all, the pendant is for emergency. In Myers Hall, that is really for anything you need. If you need a cup of coffee, you can push that pendant and ask for a cup of coffee. So that's nice. So assistance with bathing, dressing, buttoning buttons, zipping zippers, transportation we talked about to medical visits, that's all included. Nightly turn-down service of the bed, that's nice. And then of course we have a variety of activities going on as well. And so what kind kind of residents are available. I think most people are aware that we just added 24 apartments, new apartments in Myers Hall. And so we have a total of 79, and we have 2-bedroom apartments, 1 bedroom. We have the open concept, which is still gives 2 separate rooms, but more of a little kitchenette versus a big kitchen. And then we have studios. So we have a lot of different options. Almost all of them have a washer dryer, which is nice. So some people prefer to continue doing their laundry. And then most of them have either a kitchen or a kitchenette. So really there are different types, and they vary in size. So you've got anywhere from 242 square feet up to 820 square feet. So a big variety there. How much time is allowed for me to move from my current residence? If you can make the move in 2 days, 48 hours, there is no charge. But most people I have found really need to take a month to close down that apartment. And that would be at half the monthly rate of your current apartment. So you go ahead and move, and then maybe you move some of the furniture, but some is going to go to storage, some is going to go to family, and so some people take a little bit longer, and so we charge half the monthly rate for those 30 days. Okay? And now we're going to hear from Dorothy, who's going to tell us a little bit about temporary stays in Gadsden, Glen.
Thank you, Ashley. I want to live in Myers Hall. It sounds amazing. Well, I'm Dorothy Cryan. I think some of you have spoken to me. I'm the admissions coordinator over in Gadsden, Glen. And like Laura said, we have names now, so this is great. We have Gadsden Glen, Christie Rehab, and Estes Community. So what qualifies you for a temporary stay in Gadsden Glen? Well, in Christie Rehab, if you have a hospital stay and you are admitted as an inpatient for 3 nights, that's the important number to remember. If you are admitted for 3 nights, you will qualify for a Medicare-covered rehab stay, and that would be at Christie Rehab. So the services that we provide in Christie Rehab, you would receive 1 to 2 hours of rehab per day, about 5 to 6 days per week. It's just dependent on your prognosis, and the length of time, our average length of stay right now is actually 14 days. So the goal is for you to return back to your cottage or to your apartment as quickly as possible. And also, you give us a goal, and that is what you want to strive to, whether it's to be on the croquet court again or get back into golfing, and that's what our therapy team wants to hear from you. We accept all major insurances. That's to include Medicare, of course. Some other common insurances are Humana, and Aetna. We're in the process of getting into contract with them, and United Healthcare. So most of you typically have Medicare and your secondary insurance. And that's very important to always keep your secondary insurance as well, so that way the cover of the inpatient Medicare stay is covered under your insurance. So the first 20 days is covered in full by Medicare, and you have up to 100 days total. So after the 20th day, it's 80% Medicare, 20% is covered under your secondary insurance. But I will say sometimes folks don't even make it to the 20th day, or they're there for a week to 2 weeks. It's really just dependent on how well you're doing and how long you need to stay. Hospitalizations. Hopefully you know. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask you if, I have long-term care, when would that kick in? hold on, Katie's gonna come with the microphone. There's the question, Barbara, we're going.
I have long-term care and I've had it for quite some time, and I'm wondering when would that take it, kick in?
Sure, that's a great question. I know every policy is a little bit different. Several residents have long-term care insurance. It qualifies them in assisted living or skilled nursing care. It's dependent on your needs. Sometimes it will, they'll have 3 activities of daily living as a qualifier. So whether it's bathing, dressing, assistance in the bathroom, it's dependent upon your policy. But it's typically assisted living or nursing care. All right, good question.
Some of those have a elimination period.
A lot of the long-term care policies have what's called an elimination period. I have it, and mine's a 90-day elimination period, so they won't pay until the 91st day. So read your policy carefully to see what that elimination period is and how that would affect when it's going to start kicking into pay.
Okay, Katie's coming with this.
Oh, questions?
We'll take questions at the end, so let's just table that for now, but we will certainly get to your question. So as far as hospitalizations, as you all know Leslie, she's in the back there with her beautiful picture. She would be your go-to person if you are having knee surgery or hip surgery, any sort of hospitalization that you may be admitted for. Please schedule that with her ahead of time. That way, when you're actually in the hospital, I can contact your case manager, and the goal would be for you to be admitted for those 3 nights. I recently experienced this with, it wasn't a resident, but it was somebody local, and she was having hip surgery. And I instructed her to tell her surgeon that she needs to be admitted in order for her to come to our rehab. And so during her pre-op appointment, she actually told the physician, I want to go to Christie Rehab and I need a 3-night stay. And he actually agreed, and she'll be coming to rehab tomorrow. So I can't emphasize that enough, to really have that open conversation with your doctor and your surgeon, that if you would want to come to rehab, just reiterating that you have to be in the hospital for 3 nights. So like I was saying, please alert Leslie if you have an upcoming procedure. This is a rehab room in Christie Rehab. All of our rooms are private. We have a mini fridge for drinks. We have a beautiful closet with plenty of storage, your own Wi-Fi, TV. You don't have to bring anything with you, just comfortable clothing, because you're going to do therapy, something to work out in. Your bare essentials, essentially, for, I would say, a 2-week stay. This is another view. So a permanent stay in our Estes community looks a little bit different. So a lot of people ask, what is the difference between assisted living and nursing care? It's really the level of care that we're able to provide for our residents, in the sense that we can assist with all of activities of daily living. We can even use a Hoyer lift to pick somebody up if they have those physical limitations. So it's the highest care level possible, so there's not a lot we cannot do. But the differentiator, if somebody needs assistance with transferring to and from, say, their bed to their chair, actual physical assistance, that would be, a main differentiator between assisted living and skilled nursing care. What furnishings do I need? So we provide a hospital bed, a nightstand, and a chair, but the goal is for this to be your new home. So you bring all of your own furniture, paintings. The room is over 400 square feet, so that you have a nice living room. We'll actually skip to the next slide so I can show you. We have two huge, beautiful windows. And who has not toured Gadsden before? Has everyone been over to see the rooms? That's great. Wonderful. That's great news. So you have seen the skilled care rooms. They're very large, honestly, and you can fit a lot of furniture. We have the living room space and then the bedroom as well. All right, thank you guys so much.
Okay, so in summary, this continuum of care is guaranteed to you by your contract. So remember that. You will have that access. And as you can imagine, every situation is different. Diagnosis, need for making a transfer, the monthly service fee is different depending on the size of the room that you select and your contract type. But again, most importantly, you're the decision maker. Unless an emergency dictates it a little bit differently, then we spring into action quickly. One thing that I always encourage people to do is let Leslie know or let someone here know. Leslie is your point person. If you know that you're going to have some type of a procedure, no matter how small it is, we all want to think that every time we go in the hospital, everything's going to go like it did when I was 20 years old. And sometimes that doesn't happen. And if we get a call from the hospital and we're not aware that someone has had this procedure, we're like, whoa, we didn't know that person was in the hospital. Just to let us know so that if things need some more attention, that we're prepared so that we can help you. That's what we're here to do. So please let us know for any type of procedure that you might have coming up that's scheduled. Okay, and then we added another little sheet here for important contacts. I think you probably all know John Coach is our Director of Health Services, Leslie Farringer, our Social Services Coordinator, Evan Roberts, Director of Nursing. We have Dorothy and Ashley here, and then Lynn Harrison, our Chief Financial Officer. If you have any questions about the financial arrangements, we can certainly give first pass and talk about the size of residence. That's where Ashley and Dorothy can jump into play too with looking at your contract type. And of course, Lynn Harrison in our finance department is someone that you want to be in touch with about that. Oops, we forgot to ask questions. So now we'll have some questions. And Leslie's coming with the microphone right now.
In 18, I was in the hospital for a number of days, and then I came to the cloister. From your presentation today, I get the feeling that the cloister doesn't exist anymore.
The cloister is now Estes community. So there's nothing in the cloister or the old Arcadia building anymore. So all of those residents, of course, moved from the cloister into their new home called Estes community.
Thank you.
Good
What's
question.
happening at the cloister?
Pardon me?
What's going to be in those spaces?
We're still studying that. We're doing a lot of strategic planning for that space right now. So we are studying that. I think many of you have been to the resident updates where Sarah has talked about that. So we are still studying that. We've been studying it for a couple of years. It's not real easy. There's one over there. Not real easy because the floodplains have changed since that was built in, 1985 or so. So what we can do according to code is different, but we've got a great group of architects that are working on that for us right now.
My question is precipitated because if a person doesn't have to go into the hospital, but they need to have some help, like if they have a fall or if they get pneumonia in their apartment, can they get into the cost or
Estes, can they go right into Estes? I'll let Dorothy handle that, because she can know better for diagnoses.
Hi, Dr. Margie. Yes, we can do that. With your different contracts, I wouldn't be able to tell you the exact number of days you could receive it for an Estes community respite stay or short-term stay. But we do run into that from time to time if you don't have the qualifying stay in the hospital, but you need more assistance afterwards. Yes, that you can do that. There are certain criteria that still needs to be met. For instance, a PPD test, which is the skin test for tuberculosis. So we would have to have that ahead of time.
PPD also takes 2 days to read, so that's a DHEC regulation, that you have to have that before anyone can be admitted into the Estes community.
But one of the things I've heard that folks can temporarily move into Myers Hall for care. What about that? What is the qualification for that?
We do keep a temporary studio that's furnished. And there are a few qualifications. You have to have a history and physical filled out by a doctor, just basically giving us the orders to treat you. That would have your list of medications and things like that. And then the same as Estes, you would need PPD, which they place and read 48 to 72 hours later. So that would be another, option you would have if you needed a temporary stay.
I have the name here. How about hospice care? How does one get hospice care? And do they have to move out of their apartment or cottage and move into Myers Hall?
That's a great question, and my answer would be hospice essentially follows you. What care level is most appropriate? So say, for instance, you need a lot of physical assistance at that stage and hospice is involved, then hospice can come to Estes community. If that is not the case and you're still relatively independent, but you may need hospice at the time, they can come to your home or come to independent living, whether it's in the cottages or the apartments, as well as assisted living too. It's just dependent upon what your care needs are at the time.
But to have hospice, you have to have a 24-hour caregiver to be on hospice.
No, you actually don't. You do need diagnosis.
You need somebody with you, living with you. Are you sure?
Not necessarily.
Leslie might can speak to that.
There's certain criteria that you have to meet in order to have hospice, to get on hospice, and again, they do follow you. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, I know as a hospice nurse, this is years ago, but we had to have somebody living with the patient. The patient couldn't live alone.
No, that's no longer the criteria,
Huh?
and that is statewide.
Things have changed in the last few years with hospice, so you're probably right.
Laura, am I correct in believing that management cannot mandate residents moving from an apartment or a cottage into Myers Hall, and that decision is the result of a lawsuit?
Yes, we've been there, done that. Don't want to go back there again. So a lot of times people are wanting to receive that end-of-life care in their apartment or cottage. You are perfectly willing and able to do that. Remember that when someone chooses to do that, that person is completely responsible for that appropriate care. We can't step in and say, oh gosh, the caregiver didn't show up, and have someone waiting in the wings. Now, BG at home can sometimes help with that. Remember, BG at home is not home health. That is a companion service. So the things that they are allowed to do are limited. So it depends on how strong that care is for that person. We want everyone to be safe, but that's up to that person. More and more people right now are saying, you know, I see the benefit and the financial benefit of moving maybe to Myers Hall. Because remember, if you choose to do that, and you can certainly do that, you're paying that monthly fee for your residents, plus perhaps 24-hour care. Well, when you have 24-hour care at, what, $25 an hour times 24 hours a day, I think that comes up to over $600 a day, times 30 days. I think I did this for someone the other day. That's about $18,000 plus your fee to stay there. You're looking at least $20,000, $25,000 a month for those services to be provided. You are welcome to do that. But some people say, that's more than I'm comfortable paying financially. So they kind of look at the benefits of moving to the Estes community or Myers Hall where those services can be provided.
What factors would go into you coming over to my cottage and suggesting that the time has come for me to move? I mean, is that a function of falling or having traffic accidents in the parking lot?
That's something we should know. I think I'm going to let Leslie answer that one because that's her area of expertise.
Well, we kind of work together and we come together as a team to make those decisions. And the biggest thing, one of them is, are you a danger to yourself, and are you a danger to others? It isn't any one decision, and it isn't the same for every single individual. And we work together as a team. I hear from family members, well, my family member is or isn't doing this or that. They're not feeding themselves. They're failure to thrive. They've had multiple hospitalizations. So there is not any one thing that we take into consideration. It's a conglomerate of things. And again, the thing to mainly remember is, are they a danger to themselves or to others? Does that answer your question?
I think you said this, but just I guess it's clear in my mind. So if you were hospitalized and then were discharged, and I understand if you go into rehab, but there are cases where people would be able to go into Estes on a temporary basis. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. But you brought up a great point, and I didn't mention this earlier. Say, for instance, you had a 3-night stay in the hospital, and you ended up going home. You do have a 30-day window of time that Medicare could still cover your inpatient stay and pursue rehab. So you could come from home to rehab if you had those 3 nights. However, if you didn't have the 3 nights, yes, Estes is still available.
So, I want you to tell us again, because I just keep forgetting, the difference between life care and continuing care.
Life care is for people who basically did not come to Bishop Gadsden with long-term care insurance, and they qualified with no pre-existing conditions when that assessment was done. So life care means that if and when a life care contract holder ever needs to go to the highest level of care, which is where, pop quiz here, Estes, that's right. If a life care contract holder ever needs to go to the Estes community for a long-term stay, their monthly fee to stay there is 50% less than the market rate. Continuing care means that either that person has long-term care insurance, or when we did the medical assessment on them, some type of pre-existing condition was noted, which studies have shown that people with certain pre-existing conditions are probably going to need a stay in the healthcare part of Bishop Gadsden. So that's us acting as an insurance agent on your behalf, as residents' behalf. We're not going to give that big discount in that monthly fee to someone who is probably going to need that stay at some point in their life. So they're paying closer to the market rate, but they're getting some discount rate off of a direct admit rate. Is that about as clear as mud?
I just had a question about the 3-night requirement in the hospital. One hears that hospitals can be full to capacity with increased cases, whether it's the flu or COVID, et cetera. Do you find you run into problems that doctors are reluctant to let you stay for 3 nights when you might need it, or be eager to get you out to free up capacity?
Yes, we do certainly run into that, and that if you're in the hospital, like Laura and Leslie mentioned, please let us know immediately, because then I will contact your assigned case manager in the hospital and tell them that your goal is you don't feel safe going home. You know, this is independent living, you don't have assistance at home, so if you want to come to Christie Rehab, just emphasizing that. Sometimes people don't really know or when they're in their hospital, they're not really sure of their rights, and the hospitals, yes, that's their goal, is to discharge people as quickly as possible. But if you say, I don't feel comfortable going home by myself, they're more likely to actually admit you for those 3 nights. The hospitals are very familiar with Bishop Gadsden in general, and so once they admit somebody from Bishop Gadsden, the case manager usually contacts me right away.
One thing I would add to that is that the hospitals are familiar with Bishop Gadsden, but many of the case managers and discharge planners may not understand the difference between independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing, and memory support. So when someone is admitted to Roper MUSC from Bishop Gadsden, they're like, oh, they're at Bishop Gadsden, they'll be fine. So it's important that you let them know, I live in an apartment or cottage. I am not in a licensed healthcare area, because they're thinking, oh, I'll discharge this person back to Estes or back to Myers Hall, where the support services are offered. So make sure they understand those parts of Bishop Gadsden are different. This gets complicated. That's why we have Dorothy to be your advocate, is exactly what she does. So she will work on your behalf to make sure that those things happen.
In terms of the 3-night stay, is it midnight, 3 midnights? I mean, if you go in at 1 in the morning.
3 midnights, that's correct. And it has to be considered inpatient. Sometimes you'll go to the hospital and they'll admit you under quote-unquote observation. So it has to be 3 inpatient nights, which I contact the case managers and I'll make sure it qualifies for inpatient myself.
Any other questions? Well, Susan has another, oh, this one over here.
With this question, when you're taking a load at the ER.
Oh, wait, she's got one with the microphone. Hold on one second.
Oh, my turn. A year ago, I had to have heart surgery, and when I was discharged, they gave me a list of a lot of places all in the Charleston County area where I could go to, because there wasn't any room for me in the inn. Has that changed?
Yes, significantly. We have availability for emergency moves. We have more than enough availability right now in Christie Rehab, but in the event we are at the stage where we are getting more full, we will designate certain rooms specifically for Bishop Gadsden residents.
You talked about going to the hospital where you know ahead of time, like you're going for hip surgery or something. What happens when you leave here with EMS to go to the hospital? how are the channel communications completed so that somebody there knows what to do?
In that event, we do receive a security report campus-wide, and that's how we're all notified that somebody went out to the hospital. So then, from that report, I contact the hospital to check on you.
What if it's not an EMS, but a friend takes you to the hospital?
Yeah, we wouldn't know in that event.
So you wouldn't know when it would be up to the friend or the resident to contact
Leslie.
Leslie?
Yes. Or myself.
Right, yourself, and then make sure the right hospital person circles back with you and makes the arrangements?
Yep, exactly. Great question.
Do the housekeepers sometimes alert?
You heard me say this every year. We always ask residents to, it used to be let someone know that you're going to the hospital. And honestly, that really did happen a few years ago where a resident alerted her housekeeper that I'm going to have surgery. And she's like, oh, I hope everything goes well. Never quite got to the right person. So, and all means she was hoping that person was going to be fine. No. Please do not rely on your housekeeper to let us know that you're going to be hospitalized.
I didn't mean, for an emergency or like that. I mean, just in case they saw deterioration.
Oh. Sometimes I would assume that an alert housekeeper we would encourage them to let us know. And that's what, that Leslie's holding her hand up. Call Leslie, yes. What else? Anything else you can think of? Tom?
Thank you. I don't remember the details, but at one time I was under the impression that as a resident we have 20 lifetime days that we can receive care, and how does that work?
Yeah. Pass it around.
It depends, it does. It depends on your contract as to how many days that you have in ST's community. So yes, it is written in your residence and services agreement, and there's an addendum. Sure you all remember this addendum for someone who is a continuing care contract holder. So yes, there are a certain number of days that someone can stay. You're paying your apartment rate when you go there for those days. So it gets a little tricky into what that rate is and what your contract is and things like that. So yes, those are good times to come talk to, really to Lynn, to me, to Leslie, to find out how many days that you have. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate the good questions and your attention. We'll just hang around for a minute afterwards. If you have any further questions, feel free to come to us.
Thank you everyone for coming. Please make sure to fill out our form so we know how we can improve. And if you borrowed a pen, please leave it. Thank you.